Hello, this is Michael Swain, Executive Director of 4SA, Freedom of Religion South Africa, with our in-house legal advisor, Daniela Ellerbeck. And we're here to bring you an update on this week's activities. It's amazing how much is happening at the moment where 4SA has been involved in the fight for faith and freedom. So, Daniela, I think the best place to start is perhaps to pick up where we left off the last time. The so-called draft sexual orientation and gender identity guidelines, SOGI guidelines, that have been developed by the Department of Basic Education, have been drawing a lot of media attention from various political parties and obviously a lot of public concern as a consequence. But maybe you can start off by just giving us the current position here and what will happen going forward.
So Michael, 4SA has given various interviews, and we've even recorded a short video on this matter, which we'll link to the end of this video for those who are interested. And this video has also been posted on our website and our YouTube channel. Now, one of the major concerns of the draft guidelines is that they are based on a specific ideological perspective. And in South Africa, public schools need to be ideologically neutral. So the state is not allowed to simply introduce an ideology into the public school system. And we are concerned that these guidelines may infringe on various constitutional rights, the parental rights, specifically the rights of parents to pass on their own values and beliefs to their children, as well as other constitutional rights such as religious freedom, freedom of expression, and so forth. Obviously, the best interest of the child is always paramount. So these guidelines are currently not open for public comment, but the department, whom 4SA has been engaging with and will continue to engage with, has committed to opening them up for public comment in early 2023. So we encourage parents who are concerned to wait until the public comment process is open, because if you comment as part of the formal public comment process, that means that your comment will be considered. And we ask them to keep an eye out on the 4SA website, because we will definitely alert our constituency once these guidelines open for comment.
Wonderful. Now, the other thing that we've been very engaged with in Parliament have been the two so-called terrorism bills that are making their way through. And tell us a little bit about the anti-money laundering bill and the concerns that we've identified with this piece of legislation. It is still current. I know that literally just before this interview, we hit send on another submission on it, but maybe just give us a brief update on the situation with that particular piece of draft legislation.
So, Michael, the anti-money laundering bill is currently in front of the second House of Parliament, the National Council of Provinces. This is after the first House, the National Assembly, passed it. Now, viewers may know that the first version of the bill that was tabled in Parliament in front of the National Assembly was very concerning. It proposed mandatory registration for every organization that falls within the NPO Act's definition of an NPO. So that would be all your associations, trusts, non-profit companies that basically exist for a public purpose and don't give their members profit, essentially. So most of your religious organizations would have fallen within this definition, and they would then have all had to mandatory register with the Department of Social Development, bearing in mind that up until now, registration as an NPO has been voluntary. And if they fail to register, this would have resulted in criminal sanctions, which was very concerning to 4SA, as well as the fact that the NPO Act allows the DSD to request changes to founding documents such as constitutions. And for religious organizations, those are linked to doctrinal beliefs, because when one starts talking about membership, the requirements of membership, leadership, termination of leadership, for religious organizations, those are all linked to doctrinal beliefs and religious tenets. So we are very concerned that this would allow for state interference in the internal procedures of religious organizations. I am happy to say that as a result of the work that 4SA has done, the second version of the bill that is now in front of the National Council of Provinces has been considerably narrowed. So, for example, mandatory registration would only be required of those organizations falling within the definition of an NPO if they donate money overseas or provide overseas services. So yes, this will still affect many religious organizations, for example, who support missionaries, are part of international movements and so forth. But the criminal sanctions for failing to register or not adhering to certain requirements have been removed and been replaced with administrative sanctions, which is much more appropriate. And also, the bill has taken into account 4SA's concern about the state entangling itself with the internal workings and doctrines of religious organizations and made appropriate amendments to that. So definitely much less of a risk for religious organizations than when it was first tabled.
That is good news. And often, which we've said before, is that when we look at pieces of draft regulation, when we look at policies, when we look at regulations and so on, what we're really looking for is, or are perhaps the unintended consequences that can happen. Because, of course, once something is actually passed into law, you don't know what's going to happen with it, but it will be then enforced and enforceable. So it's so important that we play that role as a kind of a watchman to pick up these things. So to tell us now a little bit about the second anti-terrorism bill that's been passing through Parliament, because that also had some concerns for us. Give us an update on what's happened there, please.
So the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorism and Related Activities Amendment Bill, also known as the Tara Amendment Bill, or simply the Terrorism and Related Activities Bill, is also before Parliament. It's still in front of the first House, the National Assembly. And 4SA is very happy to say that as a result of the concerns 4SA raised there, the proposed new crime of possession and distribution of terrorism-related content rather, has been scrapped by the committee. So the version of the bill that will go to the second House of Parliament, the National Council of Provinces, will no longer contain a proposal for a new crime for which you could have gone into jail for up to 5 years for. Now, viewers may know that the distribution and possession of terrorism-related content was concerning because of the wide definition of terrorist activity. Now, the wide definition of terrorist activity is still a concern. It's still 2 pages long. When this bill goes to the second House of Parliament and opens up comment again, 4SA will continue to work hard to try and get this definition narrowed down, because people who have been following this issue will know that it was very concerning during COVID that many civil society organizations that work to facilitate public participation were labeled as being involved in terrorist activity by government departments. So that was why 4SA was concerned about the new crime of terrorism-related content, because if you then passed on via social media or WhatsApp articles or calls for comments by organizations like this, then you could have been going to jail for 5 years. So the potential existed that the bill, if it became law, would be used to silence civil society's voice.
Yeah, which is obviously concerning, but thankfully that has now been taken off the table in the next or the current draft of this bill that's now still making its way through Parliament. So well done indeed. Good news, I think, for the faith communities. Certainly, I think we can chalk that up to a victory, but also perhaps emphasizing the importance of people staying up to date and in touch with what's happening in these matters. And we want to encourage you, if you're watching this, to do exactly that, to go to our forsa.org.za website to sign up for our newsletter. We particularly in December have got a newsletter going out. It's our year-end newsletter. That's very important. Follow us on Freedom of Religion SA on Facebook. Obviously, if you're on this YouTube channel, you'll be able to see many of the videos that we're making. And above all else, we want to really encourage you to click that all-important Donate Now button, because we are only able to do the work that we do because of the voluntary financial contributions and partnerships we receive. So thank you so much for your support, and we will see you the next time.
Good day. This is Daniela Ellerbeck, the Legal Advisor to Freedom of Religion South Africa. Remember to like and share this video, and then click on the subscribe button to make sure you never miss our video updates on vital religious freedom issues.